Hello. Before we begin, just take one deep breath with me, all the way in through your nose, and just sigh it out. And I want you to really feel into this. Have you ever wanted to change? And then watched yourself do the exact same thing again, maybe even again. You said, this time it'll be different. And yet, you procrastinated. You overthought. You shut down. You maybe people pleased. You avoided the risk. You stayed small. You went back to old habits. And then maybe you judged yourself for it. Maybe you thought, I must lack discipline. I must not want it enough. Or something must be wrong with me. Sound familiar? But what if that's not true? What if your nervous system is not resisting growth, but protecting an identity it learned was necessary for survival? That changes everything. Hello, and welcome to the Aligned Human Project. I'm your host, Dawn Elgin, contrarian soul guide, founder of Practical Spiritualism, and the creator of Field and Form, the 12 Laws of Co-Creation. And here, we don't just talk about transformation. We talk about what actually allows human beings to change safely and sustainably. So let's start here. Most people think fixed mindset is just negative thinking, but it's not. Fixed mindset is often identity protection. It forms when the nervous system learns that mistakes are dangerous. Failure threatens belonging. Criticism threatens safety. Visibility creates shame, and worth must be earned. And much of that conditioning begins very early, before we even consciously understand what's happening. Through family dynamics, school systems, comparison, achievement pressure, emotional safety or the lack of it, praise patterns or criticism. Over time, the system adapts, not just mentally, but emotionally, physiologically, and energetically. Your brain is constantly trying to predict and protect. Modern neuroscience suggests the brain is less like a passive recorder and more like a prediction machine. It uses past experiences to anticipate future outcomes, which means if your earlier experiences taught you mistakes equal rejection, failure equals shame, or visibility equals danger, the nervous system may continue reacting to growth as a threat, even when you logically know better. This is why people can consciously want change while unconsciously resisting it, because the body is prioritizing familiarity over possibility. This is why adults can still be afraid of being wrong, where we have a difficulty receiving any form of feedback that doesn't feel like praise. As soon as something feels like it's a criticism, we shut down. It also is why people have a tendency to way over prepare. And I mean like not just plan A and B and maybe even a C in case things go sideways, but I mean plan A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. I mean looking at all of the variables and not just allowing ourselves to be present. Think about it. How many times have you been driving down the road by yourself, having a fake conversation? Maybe it was a conversation that already happened and what you should have said. Or maybe it's the prepping for the next conversation and what you're going to say, depending on what they say first. Sound familiar? This used to be me all the time. I was constantly planning and prepping our next conversations because I wanted to make sure I didn't look stupid. I wanted to make sure that I was on point or on top of things. Never helped. And oddly enough, probably 9% of the time, the conversation never actually happened. The things I was prepped to reply to were never said at all. And this leads us into why perfectionism becomes a big piece. Every single personality can be slightly different. And so, depending on our types, we'll show different patterns. But perfectionism actually comes from a protection place. In other words, probably somebody was told that they were a natural or they were gifted. And so then they go for protection with perfectionism because it makes them feel like, okay, they loved me when I was smart. They loved me when I was pretty. So as long as I keep maintaining this, I am lovable. And what if I can't be perfect? Well, then we're going to shoot over to procrastination as a nervous system protection. All of a sudden, we need to be doing something. We know what we need to do. We've got it on lists and we procrastinate. Why? Because we have a fear of being not enough. Remember, the four big things that humans desire are safety, security, belonging, and love. And we're either trying to get them or we're trying to keep them. And so when we feel like that's threatened, then we will do what we need to do to survive, including procrastinate. And just think about that. You procrastinate, and really what happens is we start avoiding an opportunity that we deeply want. We might have our deepest desires and never go for them. Why? Because we have a fear of not attaining it. And if we don't get what we desire, then we take that as a personal reflection to our worth. These are all things that sit with what we call a fixed mindset, or in my work, what we refer to as a survival mindset. You see, growth becomes difficult when the nervous system experiences change as danger. So now let's talk about that fixed mindset language. People often reveal their conditioning through language. Fixed mindset language sounds like some version of these following 6 statements. Just listen to them. I encourage you to notice when and where you use a version of one of them or more. They sound like, I'm just not good at this. That's not who I am. I always mess things up. I should already know this. Other people are naturally confident or talented or gifted. If I struggle, it means I'm failing. That language reflects something deeper than thought. It reflects an identity rigidity, a self-concept organized around fear, shame, and protection. Growth mindset is different. Growth mindset says, I'm learning. This is unfamiliar, not impossible. Mistakes are information. Skills can be developed. I can practice becoming. That shift changes everything. You see, we can have a fixed mindset and choose to make a shift towards growth, and thus healing at peace. When the Buddha said all of life is suffering, he was talking about the thoughts that we have that often run unchecked through our minds. We need to become aware of our thinking so that we can consciously choose to shift it, to move from misalignment to alignment, to move from suffering to sovereign. And this is where the 5 elements become incredibly powerful. Ancient Taoist wisdom understood that stress patterns shape behavior differently in different people. So the 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. Wood types often fear failure. So they'll push harder, overachieve, force outcomes, and tie worth to performance. Growth for wood means learning that failure is feedback, not an identity collapse. Fire types often fear rejection, so they perform, seek approval, and fear being truly seen. Growth for fire means authenticity over performance. Earth types often fear disappointing others. They tend to overgive, overcarry responsibility, and often neglect themselves. Growth for Earth means boundaries and self-trust. Metal types often fear imperfection. They become highly self-critical and rigid. Growth for metal means progress over perfection. And water types often fear uncertainty or inadequacy. So they hesitate, doubt themselves, and tend to avoid risk. Growth for water means building trust through aligned action. Different patterns, but the same truth. The system adapted to survive. This is why nervous system matters so much. Research around neuroplasticity shows the brain can change all throughout life to the moment you die. But repetition matters. Emotional experience matters. And safety matters. The nervous system learns not only through information, but through lived experience. This is why awareness alone often doesn't create lasting change. The body also has to experience safety, repetition, success, and coherence. All of it over time. That's how new patterns stabilize. And this is where field and form changes everything. Most people are trying to create a new life through a field that's still organized around fear. But if the field is protection, scarcity, proving, hypervigilance, and perfectionism, the form tends to recreate those patterns. The witness changes the field through the awareness. And aligned repetition reshapes the form. Think about it. Confidence is built through practice. There are so many scientific studies that have been done on this. People who are naturally gifted versus somebody that actually puts in the practice or the repetition. They put in the effort. All of my confidence in this lifetime has been built through putting in the practice, through trying, falling, failing, and moving forward and trying again. It comes from being present with ourselves. The less that I blame others and victimize myself, the more confident I become because I know I have my own back. And we do this over and over again, practicing it and staying present with ourselves. And as we keep putting in that practice, our identity begins to shift. Suddenly we go from victim to survivor. And as we practice and are present with ourselves, we start moving to victorious. When we don't do this, think of how much we actually recreate our own patterns. Leaders do it all the time, whether that's a parental leadership or that's a leadership in business or through sports or other curricular activities. Often we are recreating our own stress patterns in the culture that we live in. I'll talk about work because we spend so much time there. So how often do we recreate our own stress patterns in the culture of work? And as we recreate it, this is why teams often mirror back to us the nervous systems. Like attracts like. Organizations often normalize the emotional patterns that leaders have not healed. And if this conversation around identity, conditioning, and survival patterns resonates, make sure you watch the episode we did called Why You Feel Lost and What Purpose Really Is. The link will be in the show notes. Because many people are trying to grow while still identified with survival versions of themselves. That episode will deepen this conversation beautifully. So now let's go ahead and make this real. Take a moment and come into your body and just pause. Maybe you close your eyes or you soften your gaze. Start to become aware of your breath. Notice it in your nose, in your chest, and your belly. Taking a beautiful slow inhale and a long exhale, starting to lengthen those exhales out either through your nose or through your mouth. And as you slow the breath down, just begin to settle into your body and draw your awareness inward. Slow inhale, long exhale. becoming more and more aware of your inner experience, the sensations of your body, maybe the sounds around you, the sensation of the earth beneath your feet. And now ask yourself, where do I resist growth most often? Is it visibility, rest, leadership, boundaries, receiving, being seen, or maybe in making mistakes? And now ask, what might my nervous system believe about this? And just notice. No shame, no guilt, and no blame. And now ask, what would one small, safe step toward growth look like today? Not perfect, not dramatic, safe, aligned, and real. Just listen. Allow the answers to come forward. Just follow the breath. You do not lack potential, and you are not broken. Your system adapted intelligently to experiences that shaped identity, safety, and survival. But awareness creates choice, and choice is power. And repeated aligned experiences can reshape the system. That changes the field. And when the field changes, the form always follows. And if this conversation resonated, I want to invite you to take my free 5-element alignment assessment. It's designed to help you better understand your stress patterns, your mindset tendencies, your emotional adaptions, your leadership style, and the unconscious ways you may be recreating patterns in your life, work, and your relationships. Because self-awareness creates choice, and choice changes everything. You'll find the link below. And if you want to go deeper, this is the work we do inside Align Your Life, the Aligned Human Project and Alignment Operating System, helping leaders and teams stop recreating trauma patterns and start leading from alignment instead of survival. If you're here to build a life that doesn't cost you your nervous system, to lead, love, and create from alignment instead of exhaustion, you're in the right place. This is Practical Spiritualism. This is the Aligned Human Project. And this is where we stop rehearsing survival and start consciously creating. Alignment isn't something that you achieve. It's something that you practice. So keep pausing, keep feeling, and keep choosing. Remember, you are the witness. You shape your field, and your field shapes your life.